Second week of training camp is underway for your New Orleans Saints. Welcome everyone into the New Orleans Saints training camp show right here on CST for Wednesday, August 26. I'm Caroline Gonzalez, joined by my co-host John DeShazier. JD, for once, the Saints weren't facing just heat as the element outside. What were they facing today?
Yeah, I feel kind of like a meteorologist right now. As you can see, my hair is blowing in the wind. We had wind gusts pretty much for the entirety of practice, and it wreaked havoc a lot with what they were trying to attempt to do offensively. You saw some passes flutter. Certainly quarterbacks had to adjust the way they were trying to throw through the wind, and so that made for lower trajectories, and some of those passes got batted down, and some of them were just flat out intercepted because they were bad passes. But I mean, I think the wind really wreaked a lot of havoc with practice, and Coach Sean Payton said pretty much the same thing.
Last night when we laid out the practice, the plan was to be outside if we could, and if the weather was raining or such that we couldn't, we'd go in. So we had cloud cover. Yeah, it was windy, but ended up being pretty good for us to be out there and practice.
Well, Sean Payton knows exactly what kind of conditions his team will face this year, not only in the Superdome, but outdoors as well. And he says this is a better gauge of the talent of their pass rush and the defense for the Saints this year.
In the team settings, because you're not finishing on the quarterback, and yet you get enough one-on-one pass pro work, and you do see how guys are rushing the passer in teams, even though they're not getting a chance to finish. So I think just as importantly, open field tackling, some of those things that we're going to have to look at in live situations to not only evaluate the defensive player but also the offensive player. Some of these guys, receivers, backs, become a little bit more physical or a little bit better runner after the catch. We've got to be able to see that, and those are just some of the challenges that will be faced to practice rather than see it in a preseason game.
Well, JD, we are inching closer to the regular season opener there inside the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. What do you think are the plans for the Saints as we approach that September 13th opener?
Well, today was practice number 8. It was outside here at the Oshner Sports Performance Center. Practice 9 and 10 will also be at the facility. Not sure exactly if it's going to be indoor or outdoor. Weather will dictate that. But on Saturday, we anticipate going into the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Now, the Saints want to get in some scrimmages, some live scrimmage. They will probably not do that inside the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. However, they do want to get a couple of days' work in there, and Coach Sean Payton talked about that also after today's practice.
Yeah, I think we're going to plan on being in there Saturday of this week, and then next week we're still looking at the schedule. But getting accustomed to the new surface that's put down, the lighting, some of those things, and obviously we talked about this at the onset. Each one of these days we're outside practicing is that important because there are no preseason games, and we plan on having a scrimmage environment there. One of the afternoons we plan on scrimmaging out here this week. So all of these practices are extremely important for guys fighting for roster spots.
All right, you're watching the New Orleans Saints training camp show here on CST. Don't go anywhere. When you come back, we will hear from the Saints' 24th pick in this year's draft, Cesar Ruiz. Welcome back, everyone, to the New Orleans Saints training camp show right here on CST. I'm Caroline Gonzalez alongside our senior reporter, John DeShazier. JD, you mentioned that battle at the center position really isn't a battle because Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz have been getting semi-unequal reps. What do you say about that battle today?
Well, I'll tell you what, when I said it wasn't a battle, forget everything I said. I don't know what I'm talking about. I have no idea. For 3 consecutive days, Cesar Ruiz has taken the snaps with the number 1 offense. He's been the center on that number 1 offense. So it looks like they are really, speeding him up in the process of attempting to get him ready to play center if he has to with the number 1 offense. So that is what really has stood out these last couple of days of practice.
Well, following practice today, Cesar Ruiz spoke on getting reps at the center position.
Going through this first couple weeks of training camp, I mean, everything's been, of course there's learning curves in there, but everything's been going pretty smooth. Just really trying to learn all positions really throughout the interior. So really just going back and forth between everything and learn as much as I can right now.
Well, JD, following the draft, we heard from Cesar Ruiz, and he actually said he reached out to Eric McCoy to talk about the offensive line and what to expect coming into the Saints. What have you seen out of the chemistry between those two?
Well, one, that says about how smart Cesar Ruiz is, because he reached out to a guy who plays interior offensive line. He knew that Eric McCoy was a high draft pick from last year, and so he just kind of wanted to gauge it. But the biggest thing is, we always talk about offensive linemen and chemistry. They have to be in sync. And so mentally, they've got a little bit in sync through that phone call, but now they're getting an opportunity to do it on the field, and that's going to be huge for this offense.
Well, following practice today, we heard from Cesar Ruiz and Sean Payton talking about that chemistry.
I think most people know that I contacted Eric when I was combine training. And, it was good to build that relationship early, and just coincidence that now we're teammates. So the chemistry was previously there. So it's good to have somebody that, gave me advice going into this part of my life. We'll help each other out, bounce ideas off of each other. But really, both of us just out there trying to get better.
Look, they're both guys that pick up the scheme pretty quickly. They both have had plenty of experience at center. I think the position that neither of them have had an extended amount of work at is the guard position, and yet they're good foot athletes. So I think the mental part of it is a good start.
Well, it's not every day you're on a team with a quarterback who is a future Hall of Famer that is 20 years older than you, and you are getting snaps at center under him. But that hasn't stopped Cesar Ruiz from rising to the challenge. Cesar Ruiz spoke earlier today about the feedback he's getting from some of his teammates.
Really, just most of the feedback is, use this time to learn and to really just get your feet going. I don't really have a lot of time like other people did in the past. So they tell me, like, look, you gotta pick it up quick, but don't get don't get ahead of yourself, don't get too hard on yourself. Just learn it, but you gotta learn it quick.
Well, JD, we know the defensive line for the Saints has been formidable for the past few years. What does Cesar Ruiz seem to be learning from those guys, going against guys like Sheldon Rankins, David Onyemata, Cam Jordan? What have you seen out of that battle?
Well, biggest thing he's learned, Caroline, is Hard Knocks ain't just a TV show. It happens in training camp. You learn on the fly. You put guys in the fire, and you figure out pretty quickly what their strengths and their weaknesses are. I saw Sheldon Rankins with a spin move today against Ruiz that really was one of those welcome to the NFL moments where Sheldon Rankins did the kinds of things that Sheldon Rankins can do, and that lead to him shimmying because he's getting up off a quarterback. So, he's learning quickly. He has to learn quickly if he's going to play those interior positions, and what better way to learn than from Saints defensive linemen.
Well, looking forward to seeing a lot more out of Sheldon Rankins after he comes back from injury. But Cesar Ruiz spoke earlier today following practice about just what he's learning from the Saints defensive linemen.
I learned, especially with guys that talented on our team. It's just I learned so much. Guys like Sheldon, David, or two different players that have two different skill sets, but they definitely have taught me a lot of things, what to expect from D linemen. They show me a whole lot of different moves in practice, a lot of different variations, and of course they're going 100%. So it's helping me pick up the speed of the game, and it's helping me get everything going.
All right, don't go anywhere. You are watching the Saints Training Camp Show right here on CST. When we come back, we'll hear from Saints third-year wide receiver, Tre'Quan Smith. Welcome back into the New Orleans Saints Training Camp Show right here on CST. I'm Caroline Gonzalez alongside our trusty reporter in John DeShazier. JD, Tre'Quan Smith, wide receiver for the Saints going into his third season. His receiving yards were cut in half last year. He was dealing with injuries. In year three, what do you expect out of Tre'Quan Smith?
Well, one, he looks healthy, and he makes tough catches. We know that from his game action, but he looks healthy, and he hadn't been that for a good part of his 2 seasons with the Saints. We also know that he's capable of making big plays. Remember, he was the guy who caught the 62-yard touchdown from Drew Brees that gave Drew Brees the all-time passing yards lead in the NFL. So he's a guy who always shows up, it seems, in big moments, Caroline.
Well, we heard from Tre'Quan earlier today saying that he got into the playbook a lot more this year.
The main thing I've been working on is basically knowing, like last year I played mainly outside, and then end of the season I got kind of moved into the slot. So I've been doing a lot of learning the slot, both the Y position and the F position, because it kind of interchange in this offense. So my main thing was just coming in and like really knowing the playbook. I thought I knew it a lot last year, but I feel like I'm way farther along with that. So that was my biggest thing, learning more of the playbook.
All right, JD, as always, you are our eyes and ears there at the Ochsner Sports Performance Center. Who is on the field and who is off the field for the Saints today?
Well, biggest returnees, right tackle Ryan Ramczyk and running back Alvin Kamara. Both had missed a couple of days of work. Kamara with a stomach bug and Ramczyk probably with some rest days. So both of those guys back at practice today. Also, defensive tackle Shy Tuttle makes an appearance at practice. Good to see Shy Tuttle back on the practice field. Now, Drew Brees was on the practice field, but it was a rest day for him arm-wise, so he didn't do any throwing. He was just out there. He didn't have on a helmet, didn't have on any pads, so it was pretty much a rest day for him. And also Malcolm Jenkins, the veteran safety, gets another rest day. We'll continue to monitor as we go along, but those were the guys who were on the field and weren't on the field.
All right, JD, thanks so much for your insight. As always, we will be back tomorrow right here on CST with more coverage of Saints training camp as they continue week 2 of camp. For Caroline Gonzalez, John DeShazier, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back tomorrow.